and welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, the show where we talk about all the crazy stupid stuff that people do in marketing and how you cannot do crazy stupid stuff, but instead can do very smart, intelligent, meaningful stuff with your time, effort, energy, and budgets that are going into your marketing. And today we are talking about it. Are we all still tired of the word pivot? Because remember during COVID when everyone was like, we need to stop saying this word. This is not new normal, and pivot became like canceled. But we are living in a time in history where things are moving very, very quickly. Technology is moving very quickly. There are political changes that are happening very quickly. And I mean, we kind of got to be able to pivot and evolve. And so today we're talking about letting go of old marketing paradigms that probably had their place in history, but now are for the history books. And if we keep using those, perhaps we will not be quite as successful as we could be. So if you are joining us live, please let us know that you are here. Wherever you are watching, there is a nice little comments section. So we would love to hear your experiences with marketing paradigms, what's worked for you, what's not working anymore, what you think might work, questions, insights, perspectives, all the good stuff in that arena. Please feel free to pop it in the chat. You can also just let us know that you're here, but I really encourage you, if you are here, not to just sit and not chat, because every time we get good stuff in the chat, it makes the conversation more robust for everybody. So please feel free to contribute your thoughts, even if you're maybe sitting there being like, I wonder if I should contribute this. Yes, I say yes. Please share it with us. So please get into the chat. That will make our conversation more amazing for everybody, including myself and my lovely guest, Nicole, so we had a conversation a while ago and we got like really conversational.
Very quickly.
Passionately conversational about these old marketing paradigms. And it's interesting because, like, as a marketer, it's important to know your history, but it's also important to know when that's not going to work anymore, or especially if that's not going to work for you because you are in a specific different scenario than whenever that was created or however that was used. So before we jump too far into the conversation, because we clearly could do that right away. Nicole, can you share a little bit about yourself and why you're so passionate about this arena?
Yeah, thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you for having me. Always a really great conversation with you. I'm Nicole Okoth. I'm a brand strategist and a creator, and I've worked mostly at the intersection of media, design, innovation, and social impact, really helping brands really understand and connect the dots between their goals and what their audiences actually need, are interested in, and value. And so most recently, I worked with Team Water as a media strategist. Before that, I was a brand strategy director of a small shop called AB for a few years. So really, I'm really interested about how to bring campaigns to the cultural level and really connect with audiences and make that experience for audiences really seamless.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's actually a great place to start the conversation, because if I look at marketing history, there's always kind of been let's say successful brands have done a good job at connecting their products, services to a specific culture. Now, worldwide, we are not all living in like one culture. Well, we might think we have like one global culture. We do not have anywhere close to that. And so what are some things you would actually say are things that we would want to keep as part of the conversation as we continue to move forward into the next generation marketing?
I think so there are a bunch of things to keep, but I always find as a marketer that making sure that the story that it's about is told by the people that it's about is really key, right? What does that look like in marketing? That means that an agency that's full of, one kind of people telling a story about another kind of people, there will always be some sort of disconnect, right? When the campaign goes out of the door. And then that's where you get campaigns where people are like, who was in the room and who wasn't in the room when this was made and put together? And so there's an aspect of like a good right thinking in the agency world where, asking the right questions and having the right people in the room is the way to go. And I think that especially in the topic of culture, that is really where things need to and must go and must remain, is how do you make sure the people present in the room are also the right people to tell this very specific story to a certain group of audiences who care, value, and really like understand, down to its molecular level, the sort of nuances of this problem.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm also a big believer in the right questions, right people, especially asking the right people the right questions. The wrong people, the right questions doesn't work. The wrong questions to the right people doesn't work. Wrong, clearly doesn't work. So, in your experience, what are some successful ways that we can identify what are those right questions and who are the right people? Because I think we can also get kind of, I think we can convince ourselves of a lot of things. We're like, oh no, we're asking the right people. We're totally asking the right people. When most people are probably not asking the right people. So what are some of your thoughts on right questions and right people?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is, who are we speaking to about the problem? Right. And then as soon as you said that, I thought about a campaign. And I don't know if you're familiar with this campaign. It's from a brand called Shea Moisture. And then Shea Moisture, I think, was sold to another company. Shea Moisture is a brand that makes hair care products for typically like 4C and 3, to 3A hair. It's very, textured hair. And they were bought by a company that was predominantly white, and the team that was marketing this new campaign for Shea Moisture was, I think, predominantly white. And the campaign that came out was just like, oh, wild, And so the first question to ask is, who is this product for? Who are we asking what the issue really is, what the need is, right? Like, what is most exciting, most urgent? What I think, even just to even start the conversation off with an honest one and saying, like, what are some biases that I could have about this product in this audience? Even if you started there, you would actually start to be able to weed out in these sort of like peripheries of your strategic mind, ways in which you can actually start to get the right people in the conversations to even find out what that problem is. But there's a way to speed that up, and I don't want to jump too fast, but there's a way to speed that up by saying the audience that we are marketing to, we need to also bring strategists and thinkers in the conversation in the room with us. That's a really easy way to speed up that process, so that you don't have to waste a year of this kind of research, or 6 months, sometimes at best, of all of this research, when you could have actually just brought the right person in the room.
Yeah, I think this is it. So, like, let's play with this a little bit, because I actually think this concept of the right person in the room is a good rule, right? So when we're looking at the difference between like marketing rules, which are these things that like, these have always made sense, right? It's always made sense to hear. I mean, when you're sharing that, I'm like, ask the customer, right? Customer research. You want those people to consume your product? Why don't you ask them directly? I don't know why so many people are like terrified of like actual legitimate market research.
Well, I think and then not to kind of like jump, I want to jump in it for a quick second and say that, to your point about history and knowing your history as a marketer, there's a long history, right, of this multicultural marketing, and this idea that an all-white firm can just take a book out of Selling to the Negro, which is a real video. It's from 1954. I'll share it with you later. But just like they can just literally watch that video for 15 minutes and then they've got it, So again, there's a real pivot here. There's a lot of things we need to leave behind. And I think that there are some things that people have brought down that they think are best practices that just really obviously are completely outdated.
Yeah. Okay. So now, see, this is why these conversations are so good. I love that. There's so many of these things happening, and we think we're doing our due diligence, right? But then when you really try to penetrate that, you're like, okay, there's a gap here. And I always this is one of the things I love about these conversations is they do a really good job of helping people to identify the layers of depth that exist here. And when we talk about things like biases, these are deep things, right? They're things we go through in our day-to-day life and don't notice that they're there, right? So unless we're looking at these things and we have that, we could go into safe spaces to do that and all of these other cultural things, but we're here to talk about marketing today. So we're going to focus in that arena. But these things are intricately connected.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so before we go farther, I just want to appreciate that LinkedIn user. I'm not sure who you are, but you're coming in as LinkedIn user. So let us know who you are. Asked us what question we had asked them to comment on. So we're talking about old marketing paradigms today. So paradigms being the things you believe to be true about marketing. We just touched on a good example, right? This is multicultural marketing. You just need to watch a 15-minute video on someone who's a completely different background and culture than you, and you will know everything you need to know about marketing to those people. Which is hilarious because, again, when I say it that way, I don't think anybody is like, yeah, that's right. We agree. Do you think nobody can even, my husband can't understand me in 15 minutes. We've been together for 10 years. So I think, yes, again, unlayering these depths. So I'm kind of, okay, I'm going to give you the option, Nicole, because I'm pulled in two different directions, right? I'm pulled in there's a whole bunch of marketing paradigms out there that are not helpful for us anymore. And we can explore more of those, or we can keep going deeper on this example one that we've chosen to continue to reveal additional layers. And then also knowing that all the other paradigms, my arms are going like this, you can't see me, I also have a similar depth to them. We can touch on all of them, but is there a specific area you're being called to dive into right now?
I think something that you said a few minutes ago about really all of this, history and even politics, right? So I've worked for many, many years in social impact and philanthropy, of course, with Team Water, but then also AB for many years, and before that. And so I think that there are a lot of ways in which we can look at politics and what's happening in the public sector and really see how they impact the way that audiences and consumers are looking for their brands to show up. So that's really what's interesting me now, and what I think about a lot is the ways in which also as a social impact brand, you can actually meet people at that consumer level and cultural level and sort of cut out a lot of a lot of what happens sometimes in social impact or philanthropy, when you're advocating for the thing so much, you don't actually really address and get to the point and really at that ground level. So for me, that's really where what I'm spending a lot of my time on personally and professionally.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I'd like to dive into this concept of advocacy more, but let's start with this. The phrase that you used was the ways in which we show up. And I think when I look at the 1960s heyday of advertising, right? This was not part of the conversation, right? This is just, nobody's thinking about that. How can we get cool pictures of things and fancy taglines? And I still do love me a good jingle. I still appreciate the jingle. It helps people remember a lot of stuff. There's like brain science behind that one. But like there's like, can you share a little bit about like even in your journey how you've seen this evolution from like doing stuff like posting on social media, if we're going to use a more timely example, to conversations or an exploration around what are the ways we show up?
Yeah, I think the thing that comes to mind like most immediately is when I got into marketing through social media. So I became a little social media intern for a creative agency, like when, I don't want to date myself, but a very long time ago. And I think that at that point it was just like pretty pictures, and because it was like involved in real estate, it was actually a great way to like use that digital space for curation and showing the creative work really that this agency was doing. But I think that I also had a front row seat to a lot of the executive the C-suite thinking around the values and like what companies, and that was actually really throughout the early parts of my career, is just like hearing a lot of people in leadership talk about the values of the brand, and the brand, they have, they're drinking the Kool-Aid, they're there, they really have this concept of the brand and the company that the audience doesn't necessarily share.
Right.
There's really a disconnect between, like the whole saying of like, if someone's using a pencil to scratch their back, what do you have? Do you have a pencil, or do you it's like the back scratch, like people are buying it to do this thing. This is what you have. And so I think that for a long time, that was really a lot of my focus, and the thing that I kind of was doing in that position of a social media, strategist, is sort of like having this bird's eye view of everything, this really holistic view across everything editorial. There's all studios, all, everything, and executives and this and that. And trying to like bridge the gap there. So I think one of the biggest things is, especially for folks at agencies, at brands, like understanding that your concept of the brand is not necessarily the concept that audiences share with you. And you have to actually come down and really like, and like understand, like meet people where they are and really understand how they're engaging with the brand.
Yeah, I think that's something that's always been really interesting to me. And I'm a person who personally prefers to work with small brands because I feel like small brands are closer to their customers, which isn't always true, but the ease of that exists. The ease is greater. And so it's always been really interesting to me. I mean, I use the phrase "be with." Right? So like, how can we be with our people when we're doing marketing, right? If I'm up here and I'm sitting in my office and my job is to be with my customers, like I'm not doing that, right? Like, and again, like when we ask ourselves these questions, then we also get to uncover additional layers of things that we believe. Well, if my goal was to be with my customers and I'm over here, actually I'm throwing this over to sales because the example I have is sales, but I remember chatting with this VP of sales, and like I connected with him, and then he was sharing with me how his team have to be on LinkedIn selling stuff, but he's never on LinkedIn. And I was like, like, what's up with that? Like, you're going to tell someone to do it, and because you think it's important, but it's not important enough for you to do it. I'm confused. So while there's I get we have different job requirements and things like that as well, like there's a lot of that goes on. Like just go and talk to the customers. Well, but I'm not going to talk to the customer. I'm the vice president. I don't talk to customers. Completely. If you're not going to talk to customers, why would your team talk to customers?
Yeah, and there's a lot of silos, especially in the agency model. And I think if you, if you search hard enough within that agency model, you can actually see where I'm getting to like my business an operations bag right now, but like you can see where there's a lot of like friction and inconsistencies in terms of like where is the flow of leads coming from, who could actually lean in more, who has the expertise actually to sort of show up, we're talking about show up on these channels and sort of be the voice or the person with the insight that is actually going to be the game changer. Like there are in the existing structure of agencies a lot of opportunities, but I also see the agency structure as and maybe this is too much of a hot take, but like as the agency structure as itself, like the traditional agency structure, as something that is also pretty outdated. And I don't think it's really that useful anymore. Especially when we talk about social media and we talk about culture and we're seeing how quickly, and that's not to conflate media with culture because they're two different things, but how quickly things are moving, even culture, how the agency model isn't really built to actually innovate and also deliver at the speed necessary to keep up with the conversations.
Right. I think this is an important piece to specifically to look at in marketing, because I still think a lot of times people see marketing as in-house or agency, and that's like the two options. And in the last few years, we've seen a lot more fractional resources for a variety of different types of things. And honestly, for 20 years, marketing has been very freelance from a like video editing, graphic design type of like point of view. And so the thing that I find really interesting, I would love to dive into this with you, is the like concept of outsourcing, right? So like an agency model is based on the fact that I don't have to do the work. You're going to do the work. You're the smart ones. You're the creative ones. You do that. You come back at me. I will approve. I will consume your content, but like I'm not a creator. And then there's that like identity of not the creator. And I think there's a lack of ownership that exists there within the organization, that's not positively contributing to where a conversation could go from a marketing point of view. If you are looking at this from this, how we're showing up, how we interact with our customers. It's just like, I don't want to say putting lipstick on a pig because it's not all pigs, right? But like, I'm just saying like, you're a really good lipstick brand. I'm going to get lipstick from you. And maybe I already match the lipstick, so that is okay. But maybe I don't, but I don't really care. I just need your lipstick on me, and then that'll make me good. But it doesn't feed sales. Then it doesn't feed customer experience. It doesn't feed operations. It doesn't feed delivery. It doesn't feed like the cycle of return customers. It's always like that creating from new. So it just seems, again, maybe this is because the paradigm has shifted, right? And like before, the way what people were consuming from a media and marketing point of view was very, oh, I need a bed. You sell beds. So I'm going to go to your store and I'm going to buy a bed, right? Or I'm going to go to a few different stores and look at beds, and then I'm going to go buy a bed. But that's not necessarily where we've evolved to now from a marketing point of view.
No, 100%. You said so many really great things. And I think that I'm like, which one do I choose? I think you're completely 100% right on the nose. I think that there are so many opportunities, right, for brands to actually be in the conversation and in the work. But I think because, and especially when we're talking about like organizations, philanthropic organizations, and folks who are just like short staff, short change, it is actually really hard for them to be in these conversations, but it's also critical in like where it counts. And I think that that it's a hard thing, right? Like certain brands, they are, in teams, they're experts, right, at what they do, and they have to be experts. at what they do, right? If there's a climate organization who, like, most of the folks in the team are like, listen, we don't know anything about branding, but like, ask me something about, El Nino. Like, I don't know, I'm just making things up.
No, we are not the climate experts. We are the marketing experts.
Clearly.
So our examples might not be the best examples.
But yeah. So, but so they are going to need support. But I think that, I do think that but also people go to agencies because they are looking for expertise in that area, right? And so there has to be, it has to be a relationship all the way through. And I think the same way that that those experts are respected in their field, there also needs to be a level of like understanding and consideration and respect for the creative, and the fact that the ways to do things are not going to be cookie cutter, right? So like my brain is going to like a campaign in a box, right? Like, let's just do the thing. I came to you, I gave you the money. We need to go advocate for a thing. And so just like give it to me in 8 weeks and like, let's be done, So, I'm kind of like playing devil's advocate a little bit, but there is really, to your point, like, there's really a relationship that needs to be built. But I also think that agencies, or at least experts on that side of things, need to push more. So sometimes the relationship dynamic, because agencies are built on how many clients can we get? Can we get them to like sign on to be, a repeat customer? There's the model itself is so dependent upon servicing the client in that way that it becomes hard to be in a position to challenge them when it's your bread and butter, yeah.
Yeah, this is great. And hi, Darren. Nice to see you. He is sharing here. It's up to the outsource to understand, know, and represent the brand. So it's very important. If you're going to outsource, you have to ensure that outsource understands your brand, or there will be much less traction and in fact can damage the brand. I think the interesting thing is there's layers of things we know about our brand, right? So like a lot of times when you're like, oh, I have my tagline and my colors and my values and a logo, and here you go, media agency, come up with something that my clients are going to like. And you're like, first of all, you don't know who your clients are. So I don't even know who I'm talking to, right? So I can go and I can talk to people, but can't guarantee that those people are your clients, or what I'm saying to them is meaningful. And so again, like there's the layers of that, and we don't know what we don't know. Mm-hmm. So unless you have, and I feel like this is one of the things where I think the experts could be doing better due diligence, is saying like, okay, we don't have enough information here to like do the thing, right? Like, so you're asking us to do what I'm an expert at, but I need specific inputs to generate specific outputs. If I don't have those inputs, then I can't generate the output. I'm not magic. So like we can work together and figure it out if you don't have it. But equally, there will be someone else somewhere who will do it for you without that information. So then you're like, well, they'll do it for me and without the information, and they'll do it for cheaper. Yeah, probably, because an expert wouldn't do it because they know it wasn't going to work because we don't have the right information. So I think that is interesting from the marketing paradigm point of view. Like, and I don't know how real is what you see on like the TV shows, but like I remember like watching like, hey, this is Campbell's soup. It's soup, right? Here's a can of soup. Make it into a campaign. And they're like, people love to eat soup. Just like make it happen. Mm-hmm. Like in the 60s, that probably would work. But now if I go out there and I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to just put pictures of soup all over social media, and that's going to sell you more soup. Debatable.
And most of the time, what I've seen is that what teams will really great, smart teams will do is try to then figure out the problem, right? But then they're breaking their brains to figure out how to like solve this problem when you go to the root of certain things, it becomes a bigger like industry-wide problem. It becomes a big sector-wide problem, and then the campaign ends up taking 6 months to a year in order to actually complete. I think to the person who commented, it speeds up the process again. I think to the point that we were making at the top of the conversation, when you have the people with the expertise and the experience that really know the problem on a molecular level inside of the rooms, really working with you on it, it'll always speed up the process. But I think that the agency model is also so siloed, or like outsourcing. You outsource to an agency or a shop, and I think that they are also just flying by the seat of their pants, right? It's like the nature of the business in a lot of ways is that like we've got something new in it, everyone, assemble, and then you're kind of on that assembly line, and then that also does take away a lot of the innovation and creativity from the process.
I think this happens commonly, even not in the agency model, right? Is that we get on this like assembly line of pumping out content and creating blog posts or posting on social media, and then we're just on this like train of doing stuff, and we don't stop the train for long enough to say like, where am I going with this train? This train is supposed to go somewhere, right? It's not just supposed to like chug, chug, chug and pump all this gross pollution out into the world and then get us nowhere, right? Like that's not really the point. But I think it's really interesting, again, to like, where are we having these conversations? Right? I would like to hope that they're happening at the like high level, business high level, marketing high level, right? Like if you do have an agency that your account manager is having these types of conversations with you, if you're outsourcing this to a fractional expert, that they are bringing you into these types of conversations instead of just being treated like a production machine. And I think there are some agencies that are set up to be production machines, and thinking more so and still like TV production and things like that. But there's a lot of them now too that are like, okay, just like, whoa there. Yes, this is where we want to get to, but this is where we are right now. So we can't just like press a button and turn the machine on, because if I am a chocolate making machine and I'm going to do chocolate covered strawberries. So I have chocolate and I have strawberries, but I have chocolate pouring over here, but the strawberries are not going into the machine. What I get out at the end is not chocolate covered strawberries. Like,
no, it's true. A lot of things get lost in translation in the end. I remember one campaign that I was leading on the strategy side for the largest like legal advocacy organization in the country. And we started off in one place, and, revolving door on their side, revolving door on our side, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, changing scopes, right? Creative not being in the room when we actually did the strategy, no matter how much I tried to like pull them in, right? Because as an agency model, folks were stretched thin in other projects. And then what comes out a year and a half later is something completely, far and away from sort of the innovative sort of idea that we had in the first place to really like move the needle on some issues that they ultimately wanted to push with their target audience, which is a much younger audience. And I knew that what we put out was kind of just generic again. And I think this is where we come to like the subject about people complaining about brands being so generic.
Yeah.
Like what is the deal? Like, why does everything sound like a movement for all? And, movements are not bad. For all is not bad. But if every single brand sounds like the same thing, then we're in dicey territory about what actually, like, how are you guys making this sausage?
Yeah. Well, and again, like then these are the things that become like interesting to me when we're like pressure testing paradigms versus other like rules of marketing. Whereas like, Nicole, I'm just not quite sure if you're still there because I lost your camera and you went on mute. So I'm going to keep going.
Sorry, so sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to, we've had some weird technical issues on this show, so I just wanted to check. One time I disappeared, so that was even
Oh no.
My guess, I was just like, just keep going. I don't know.
You got this, girl.
Anyway, kind of lost my train of thought with that. But like when we come back to these rules of like, I always say like, then I think still the number one rule of marketing is don't look the same as everybody else.
You
Right?
think, right?
If you look the same as everybody else, people don't have a reason to choose you. They might have a reason to like batch you into like, oh, you sell candy bars. That's good. But like,
But I think that now, I think we've gotten into a territory, especially in the late 2010s, right up until COVID and the uprising thing and things like that, of risk mitigation, right? Of the like social media and capitalism and risk mitigation all coming together to create this don't say anything that's going to piss off anyone.
Okay.
And I think that that's what has really fueled this, because people will say like, oh, it's woke and it's PC culture and all this other stuff. No, it's capitalism. That's really what it is, and folks not wanting to be canceled and called out at a time when cancel culture was like really at its height, right? And so a lot of corporations decided and brands decided to just mitigate the risk, and that's which is the antithesis of what we saw right in advertising in the 90s, where it was like I don't know, like game consoles giving out condoms, and you're like, whoa, this is what do you say? Like that's not you guys don't care,
well, they know their target audience, and their target audience needs both of those things.
Like, whoa, the 90s are a crazy time, but that's where you see a lot of brands do a lot of crazy things, for good and not so good. But this culture of like anti that I think is really coming back, right? When we speak about like what is happening now that's working, I think that a lot of people are deciding to go offline and off digital spaces, and deciding that the thing that they can trust the most, not necessarily trust, because I always tell people, like, I think people are beyond trust. This conversation about trust in advertising is like really, really old. And I think that people are like, have been distrusting to a place of like, radical indifference. And that radical indifference is really leading them off of these platforms and into things that they can not like trust, but believe in, and that's more local, that's more in person, that's more word of mouth. And really seeing how a lot of also younger consumers are, number one, not consumers anymore in the same ways that we understood them to be. And a lot of them are opting for analog and, more real than before.
I always get really proud because my 7-year-old is very into creating his own games, but not video games. Like he will get a piece of paper and he will cut out pieces and make like board games. And I'm like, I am so proud of you.
Yeah.
We need a new generation of board games, folks. I love this concept though of like how the distrust leads to radical indifference. It's not even like passion on either side, right? Like this is the thing I see this very commonly with email, right? Like, yeah, people will sign up for your email list. That doesn't mean that they like you. That doesn't mean that they hate you. It just is like, meh, there's nothing. It's a nothing.
It's the world of like data, like in a time where, and I'm so guilty of like subscribing to every single email list out.
So especially marketers are the worst at this.
Because you know why? Because I'm collecting data. This is research purposes. You're collecting data on me. I'm collecting data on you. Okay. Thank you very much.
How's that taste?
How is that?
That's why I do every market research survey, because I am like, I mostly want to see how bad these questions are, because I know that most market research is terrible. How bad are your questions?
Webinars. I'm showing up to every webinar. I'm in there. I'm like, show me something new. I really am. I want to see something crazy, you know?
So yeah, anyway, so this is awesome. Radical indifference. Yes, watch out for it in your marketing. Okay, I want to make sure that as part of this conversation, we also talk about, because we've talked about kind of like the curiosity and the questions that we can start to ask to help us identify some of these old paradigms that we want to move away from. But I'd also like to talk about this, like letting go, especially if maybe like all of your other competitors are seemingly still doing that. Because if we are going to, we've got this whole, you know, it like kind of boggles my mind when I think about marketing and risk mitigation together. I'm like, these two things aren't even, they're not the same department, right? But like,
you would think. Yeah, but I mean, it's leading a lot of, especially in the philanthropic space, social impact. It's really leading. I mean, I can't tell you how many conversations, you know, I've had to have with clients and then be on the call with the firm that is overseeing risk mitigate, you know what I mean? And then it's me, the strategist, the client, and the folks, you know, that are in charge of, you know, the book for in case this happens, we go to plan A, we go to plan B, like, you know, I mean, and that's really, again, as a social, you know, it's coming in as a social media strategist, that's really kind of been a very typical experience for me, because I think, yeah, a lot of I think it's the people behind the brand that really are so adverse to risk and afraid of you know, again, I know it's capitalism, you know, they're afraid of losing their jobs and losing their positions.
It's like the typical command and control structure, right? And it's interesting because as you were saying that, the thing that kept coming up in my mind was like, in the scenarios where I have interpreted something as risk mitigation, like how often did that create trust? And my brain says it creates distrust all the time. Well, this is my experience, right? I'm not saying this is, I don't believe in absolutes, but like for me, I can't think of an example where something I experienced as risk mitigation made me feel better, right? That I trust you more because you're doing that.
And I think I think at the very least, it doesn't actually seize the moment, right? Like we are in a really pivotal moment right now. Like back to your point of the things that, you know, like marketing and advertising and brands are not existing in a silo. You know, we're in the middle of a really critical, pivotal moment. And I think that then you stand for nothing. And as things are shifting, you know, from like, does this brand associate me with value to does this brand believe in what I believe? And do I feel like I belong? You know, as we're shifting there, you know, there are a lot of brands that will not make it, you know, past the next 5 to 10 years and so on, because they really don't really stand for anything and they don't create like a place of belonging or something to believe in. Right?
Yeah. I have like 2 very Canadian examples that I'm going to throw out here for the Canadians who are watching. You can find them on the news if you're really interested in diving into it. But so this year in Canada, very common for people to wear a poppy for Remembrance Day as like a symbol of remembrance. And there was a bunch of the law courts who said that it was not appropriate attire in the courtroom to wear a poppy because it was a political statement.
Gotcha.
And so there, I mean, I wrote a post about it. People want to hear my opinion. But one of the things that was really interesting is one of the, I don't know if he was the premier of Nova Scotia or one of the Atlantic provinces was like, this is ridiculous. He was like, I think it was on Twitter, and he just was like, this is unacceptable. This is about people like celebrating our freedom and their their families who have like fought for our freedom, like, I'm going to go and like take this bill to like try and make sure that it's always legal for people to wear poppies. And he just like flew off the handle. And so if you were looking at that from a risk mitigation perspective, especially from a politician, which is very, I mean, politicians maybe getting a little more in your face lately. But the thing that was interesting in is like, oh, I agree with him, right? Like, I don't think it's a political statement. I think if people want to wear it, it's like up to the, like, it's a personal decision, right? Like if you were going to wear earrings to court, right? Like you can wear whatever earrings you want. But maybe there's a certain size of puppy that you can wear if you're in the like judicial court, but like this, anyway, but it was just like, he took that stand. And then I'm sure there were people who disagreed with him as well, but I happened to be somebody who agreed. And I was like, oh, who are you? I like you, right? Like I never knew you before this, and now I like you. So thank you for doing that. On the flip side, another like so the Hudson's Bay Company, which was like one of the original Canadian businesses, right? Started with like fur trading in forever ago. I don't even know all of the historic data on it. I think about 15 years ago, it got bought out by an American company, and then it just like ceased to be Canadian, right? Like it just, people didn't care. It wasn't Canadian owned, and now it's out of business. Which is like one of those brands like you were mentioning, like these brands are going to go away. And we think about these as like big established brands. You're like, there's no way that the Bay could ever disappear like that. No, that can never happen. Happened. And it's going to continue to happen.
Absolutely. And will continue, because I think also with this, I know, you were mentioning things about AI and like technology and like where things are going. Like people have a sharpness of vision, and it's not just like fake, like deep fakes, it's also, again, like a brand values, like what do you stand for? And that goes for any brand, an institution, something that you think is like, obviously administrations, like there are a lot of things that you think are set in stone and firm, and we are seeing now in 2025 that how fragile things are, right? And the impermanence of things. So I think it's something really important for folks to understand, is that like you have to, like Aldi. I don't know if you saw recently, Aldi, SNAP benefits were cut by the administration, and everyone is trying to figure out, for November and, possibly going forward, like what are people going to do about food? And Aldi immediately put out very quickly, which is Aldi is a multinational company and brand. And they quickly put out the statement and a poster like, hey, you guys, you can get Thanksgiving dinner for 10 people for only $40 at Aldi. And it's something as simple as that. It seems like it's simple, but it's so critical, and that's what I mean about like, meeting consumers at that intersection of like, communities need help. How are brands actually showing up to like stand in the gaps of these things when other systems are really failing?
I love this concept of where can brands fill in the gap. I'm writing it down because I don't want to forget it. But this is also, I think this is about, to some degree, your permission to like stand on your values, right? So if one of your corporate values is that people deserve to be together on Thanksgiving, right? Or we care about people, right? And our interpretation of that is that sharing a family dinner on Thanksgiving is a way that we can contribute to that. Right. Then you can, like you said, seize the moment, right? And say like, this is happening. I can do this. So I'm going to seize the moment and do that. I'm going to help my people. My people care about this. I care about this. So we're going to do the thing that we can do. And we can't all do all things. That's not what we can do. But when we have those moments, we are very clear on like, this is kind of a like seemingly frivolous example, but like how we make donations, right? Like I can have a lot of different people come to my door, and like I don't make donations to every single organization that knocks on my door. I don't. But there are some that you're like, I've worn glasses since I was 8. The like visually impaired is like something that is very important to me because I have a personal experience with it. So when the Canadian National Institute for the Blind came to my door, I'm like, yep, you don't even need to like give me the spiel. Just give me the brochure, right? Like I want to contribute to this. I get their things and it's like, this is how you can volunteer. And I'm like, yes, I would like to do that because this is the thing that is for me. They're like, we all have those things. And as brands, we can also spend a lot of time trying to convince people to believe the same things that we believe, but that's not possible. There's people who believe it already, and there's you. And if you authentically believe it and you go out and be like, hey friends, Thanksgiving dinner, saw us this year, right? Then like the people see you and they feel you in a different way than just being like, oh, that person posted on social media every day for the last 12 years. No one cares about that.
Yeah, because there are real people behind the brand, and those people have the courage to actually make decisions that will save people's lives, like, and I think ultimately that's what people, what audiences and, consumers are looking for is really how is my dollar actually benefiting those people behind the brand, right? In a way that I think, again, like a lot of executives and leadership, they really underestimate. The fact that people are thinking so critically about, every dollar is an investment. Even specifically, I would say for Black and Brown consumers, they say that our dollar doesn't circulate the way that it circulates in other communities. And so it's really critical for communities where like every dollar you put is really sometimes life or death. It's really important to like pay attention to where that dollar goes. And again, I think it's something that brands need to like really pay attention to.
And I think it's just this ability for us to appreciate that our experience is not everybody's experience. And that doesn't mean I can have everybody's experience. I can't have everybody's experience. That's also impossible. But what if I can listen, I can remember, right? I can take into consideration, this is a thing. So my family and I, we always go to the Christmas Carol play every year. And every year they do toonies for turkeys. So you give $2 and then they get turkeys for a whole bunch of families who wouldn't have turkey. And inevitably people end up giving $5, $10, $20 because the people who can pay $75 for a ticket to the theater can pay $20 for that. But this is like, I love what you mentioned about the like economic flow of dollars, right? I think there's a lot, like marketing's job is to create economic flow, right? I'm supposed to have money flow in here. I spend money to do marketing and I'm supposed to create new money coming in. It is supposed to generate flow. And when we look at that and we look at a lot of the risk mitigation stuff is about holding money, right? Not flowing money. And so when we start to break down some of these paradigms, then we start to see, oh, are we contributing negatively to this? And then once we see it, if that is something that isn't in alignment with our culture, with our beliefs, we have that opportunity to let it go. And I think this is a really fun place to end our conversation here today, because I think a lot, especially in like personal development conversations, people can get convinced that they're supposed to let a whole bunch of stuff go, right? And we're not actually here today to tell you what to let go of. We are here to create space for you to explore what are the things that are taking you where you want to go next, and where are things not taking you where you want to go next, so you can identify what you want to let go of, and then like own it. choose one thing that you want to let go of because you got to see something differently. And I mean, I would like to hope you see something differently from these conversations, but also every conversation that you have can be a window into seeing something differently. So whether it's this conversation today, or whether it's a follow-up conversation you have with me or Nicole or any of the wonderful peeps that were in the chat today, like there's opportunities for us to see new things through someone else's perspective that enable us to be more us, that aren't out there to convince you to be more like some other brand, but can allow you to be more you, can allow you to seize those moments that are yours, which are not all the moments are for everybody, right? Maybe it's not your moment. That's fine. That doesn't mean you can't be prepared to seize your moment when it comes. So with that, Nicole, before we wrap up for today, if people are interested in exploring any of these wonderful things that we talked about today with you, where is the best place for people to find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn at Nicole Okoth, Instagram at Nicole Okoth Official, YouTube at Nicole Okoth Official. And I think I have a TikTok that I don't post on, and that's Nicole Okoth as well.
So maybe don't find her on TikTok, but other places. If you are on LinkedIn, then Nicole's actually tagged in the post that's related to this live. So you can go and you can click on her name, and then it will take you directly to her account. So that is the easiest way on LinkedIn anyways. And as I say at the end of every episode, if you are currently in the mindset of that marketing paradigm might be holding you back from something, please don't let this be the last conversation you participate in on that front. Please let it be the first of many conversations that you participate in, because if we learned anything from Elsa from Frozen, letting it go is a continual process. It is something that we continue to practice, and throughout our lives, throughout our businesses, there are going to be continually new things to let go of. Old things, there'll be new reasons why we want to let go of old things. That makes more sense. In the future, the new things will turn into old things, and then we'll want to let them go too, probably. This is how we get into the practice of authenticity, how we get into the practice of being ourselves, how we get into the practice of doing what we would do so that we can have the greatest impact that we are hoping to have. So I want to say a big thank you to Jarrell, to Darren, and to LinkedIn user who I didn't quite figure out who they are. You had some great comments, everybody. And Nicole, thank you so much for sharing all of your insights today. It was such a wonderful conversation. And until next time, everybody, permission to do you. Bye-bye.